A hiding place, get it in your mind. Background: me age 45, W44, married 10 years together, 12 and a half, 8-year-old son through IVF, one failed attempt, have been through lots together but always got through it. December 2017, finally got wife eternity ring and we remortgaged for 5 years, so full commitment. Following year, couple of holidays leading up to summer, but that's when things went strange. We have neighbors who my son was school friends with their son and my wife friends with the mom. She would go round for drinks and playdates with the kids. Well, one night she came back from there and told me the husband was telling her he was unhappy in the marriage and he had nothing in common with his wife, my wife's friend. I said to my wife, well, that's strange telling you that, and my wife agreed. Now most people I think would have kept away or only went round if their female friend was there, but my wife decided to basically start lying to me and made up any excuse to go round. She also one night came home half drunk, which I pulled her up on, and she became very defensive. There must have been 6 or 7 times when I said, why are you going again, just put my son through the fence, but she would say, I think my friend wants a chat. But when I asked my son the next day, was the mum there, he would reply, no, just the dad, and it was mummy who wanted to go round. The worst time this happened, she had asked me to get my son ready for bed when she got home, as I was going out to watch England in a WC game. I came home late and they were both asleep, so the next day I asked my son what time he went to bed. He said he went round his friends with mummy as she wanted to go round. By now my gut feeling was awful, but as perfect as it sounds, I didn't really question it. I just thought, no, not my wife, there is nothing in it. I was also overweight and lacking in confidence at the time, so didn't want to come across as jealous, controlling. The summer went on and one night my wife had a night out and I didn't hear from her until the taxi dropped her off right up the road from our home. She would never do this as she hates walking on her own in the dark, so a big red flag after all the other stuff that had gone on. Around this time my wife had a health scare which has since been confirmed as multiple sclerosis. We had also got into a habit of overspending even though we were both earning good money, so lots of stresses going on. This I thought explained her feeling more distant, and she had also started smoking again after years, which I was constantly telling her off as it can make it worse, but she wouldn't have it and kept saying I'm fed up with people telling me what to do. So, it comes to October and I had noticed she got even more stressed about things than normal, and we had another argument about smoking and money, which I ended up throwing my wedding ring, no excuse but think my summer of feeling something going on but not dealing with it came out. She then told me one night she was unhappy and wanted to separate. It was like being hit with a steam engine. She said there was no point talking about it, and I would say within a minute she was telling me I can still see my son and we need to sort money out, and oh, do I fancy a glass of wine. After the shock I did the usual. I lost lots of weight, started reading again, and looked and felt completely different. I think my wife noticed and started flirting again, but was still determined this was for the best to separate. Well, we had a false Christmas for my son and then told him Mummy and Daddy are not going to be together anymore and Daddy was moving to nannies. Yep, don't know why I let her manipulate me to be the one who moved out. My son was devastated as me and him are seriously close. He is a proper daddy's boy. So, I carried on working on myself, going through all the stages of grief, but my wife seemed full of herself. I was shocked after all we had been through, but decided I could only control myself and being there for my son. There were lots of times where my son would cry and hold me when I picked him up or I dropped him at the family home, but my wife would snarl her nose up and get angry at him. I couldn't believe it and tons her straight. I think this was probably guilted, to be honest. A friend of mine who had been through the same thing said to me, I think there is someone else. I said no, not my wife, and nobody had appeared on the scene. I can remember I messaged my wife to say I would be coming to the bungalow to pick a couple of things up. I turned up and she had all her hair done, and when I went in the bungalow, which she didn't expect, there was a rucksack I didn't recognize, a half-eaten takeaway, and some alcohol. This was 10 o'clock at night. My wife never fancied Chinese, didn't drink cider, and the rucksack wasn't hers. Again, I was still in denial like the previous summer and thought not there must be an explanation for it, even though I asked to have you had company, to which just said really sheepish. But again I acted so weak as I was probably still looking to get her back. It wasn't till April I got a text from her saying, just to let you know, but _he, her friend's husband, the neighbor, had asked her out on a date. I confronted her that night and said it all makes sense, you and your little friend. She got defensive and angry. She forgot to tell me he had left her friend the week before my wife wanted us to separate. So, I texted her asking for her friend's number, which she sent me, but later she texted saying we need to talk. I said what about? She said everything. I called the other wife her friend and lots came out. She had the same gut feeling that summer as my wife always turned up when she was at work. She also told me my wife had told her husband that she was unhappy in her marriage and that we were having problem. Would have rather she had told me. She didn't even have a woman-to-woman chat with her friend. The husband had since been meeting up with my wife and the kids loads even before I had moved out. I was totally oblivious to this. My wife's friend called my wife about this a couple of times and told her she is not happy or comfortable with this, as he was begging to go back, threatening her in front of their kids, letting the kids down, not paying for them, and sending her vile text. He also turned up and moved himself back, in which ended up with police being called. My wife knew all this but still couldn't leave him alone and even had him in my house with all the kids eating tea. I again confronted her and had a big go at her. They seemed to bump into each other loads, and my wife even turned up at her friends and told her she needs to be a bigger person in all this and to put her kids first. I couldn't believe she could do this after what she was doing to her friend. There is so much more. Like, my wife got an extra job in a pub, the same one he worked. My in-laws, especially my wife's stepdad, who I had become really close to over the years, were furious with her and had guessed something was going on even before we had separated, and they were again fully with me. So, I have had a few deep chats with my wife, have accused her of having at the very least an EA, which she denies and gaslights me. So here we are. My wife looks like she left for her friend's husband, but he, I now know, wasn't interested after a while, and I have now found out he did the same with his wife's best friend, who happened to be one of their bridesmaids. He also has a new girlfriend, so has nothing to do with my wife. So, my wife has destroyed our marriage, as a husband who despises her has played with my son's life, helped wreck her friend's marriage. Sorry, as my wife says, she was just friends with him. Which is another 2 kids now from broken homes. She has lost my family and friends and is now a single mom with multiple sclerosis, working all hours. I am waiting for her to buy me out with her real dad. He knows nothing of this mess she has made and would be furious. To say I have struggled at times is an understatement. The anger, depression, missing my son and home, which if I knew what I know now, I would never have moved out. Just a quick background: my wife comes from a broken home. Her brother couldn't deal with it. He became a drug addict and in and out of prison. Totally different to my close family. So, as you can see, I have no idea what happened really. It's like she has thrown everything away for actually nothing, but it has traumatized me definitely how sudden and brutal she did it. The funny thing is how it goes round. I have got back in great shape and look and act nothing like the bloke she was married to, and have suddenly had a few single mums up our son's school say hello. My wife found this out and really started flirting. We had a sleepover at our home for my son's birthday, and my wife was so touchy-feely and giving me her naughty look, and when it came to bedtime I slept in my bed. She asked, "Where shall she sleep?" I said, "Up to you." She said, "I'll sleep in here, but no touching," with a naughty grin. I said, "And I take pride in this, that's okay, I don't want to touch you," and went to sleep. So, I have proper detached from her, a hard 180, as she shows no empathy for whatever happened, no remorse, just feels sorry for herself. I hope this very long post makes sense in some way, as I have no idea what she has achieved. Midlife crisis comes to mind, health scare, financial worries, work from home mom. No excuse though, keeps saying she has found herself. So, I am pretty certain infidelity of some sort, but her ridiculous fantasy of her and her friend's husband didn't happen. She hasn't. She is like some teenage girl now with no idea of consequences. I am probably like a lot of people. I'm not sure if I miss her specifically, especially what she has done, or miss the family life and living with son. I think if my wife had shown proper deep remorse and really looked at her faults in our marriage like I have done, then who knows, and also full honesty about all she had done, but as a person I don't think she is capable of that. The last time we had a big chat she was just feeling sorry for herself, so that is a big red flag for me. So, I am just going to carry on with my life. I've never been fitter and in shape and as confident as I am now, so quite excited about my future with my son. Another thing, the way she has thrown everything away for some loser as she has an uncertain future health-wise is mind-boggling. As far as having my son, I work full-time, so that can't really happen. We also have a good support network, grandparents, so we will see how the future pans out. I see my son lots. I am his football coach and we are so close, and I think getting closer if possible. The sudden brutal end to our marriage, no interest in talking or working on ourselves before we break our son's family up. Then the rug sweeping, oh no, he was just a friend. She didn't know he had left her friend just before our breakup. A lie. I have become friends with the other wife. We know so much between us. I think these cheats think we are all stupid. How many times she has said he was just a friend. What is wrong with me? Can't I just believe her and forget everything and just be friends? They are in such a foggy world. On one hand I want to shake and say, what the hell are you doing, but can't forget what she has done. I was so guilty of being this overweight, doing loads round the house, perfect dad, but sulking over no bonding. I was so unattractive, if I'm honest, acted how I looked. It's funny, I have completely changed shape, lean, muscled, confident, and suddenly it's like I'm this good-looking single dad, more alpha. I always wonder what goes through WS minds when they destroy everything for nothing, and the BS works on themselves physically, emotionally. When my wife got wind of other attractive females interested suddenly, she was definitely trying to put out feelers and flirting. My wife needs to be careful what she wishes for. My STBX hasn't the tools to look inwards. She goes with emotion and impulse, a dangerous combination for making huge decisions. My comment: as soon as you drop her, you will feel the weight off you. Sometimes the betrayed ones are also in a fog, and when you walk out of a fog, you will become a new person. You got the money, the youth to chase what's out there. Story 2. My husband and I have been together for 13 years total, married for 3 of those years as of next month. We don't have any children because we wanted to be financially secure beforehand. We're getting there, though, maybe another year and a half. Wanted to pay off his huge undergraduate student loans. We did nearly 3 years ago, and now husband is paying his way through grad school. We also wanted to buy a house first but live in a one-bedroom rental so that we can afford to pay out of pocket for his MBA. When we talked about having kids, we agreed I'd stay home and raise them. My husband makes good money, but we move a lot, and we agreed that I could give notice to my employer and we'd see how we'd do on just his income. We're doing just fine. We have to keep renting a small apartment in order to afford tuition, but we are okay. Last year, we talked about getting life insurance through his employer, especially since I'm not working right now. It costs maybe a few dollars a week, but the policy through work offers up to 9 times his salary. No, it's not enough to live on forever, but if God forbid something happened to him, I could go back to work and get by with that. The other day, however, he said he wants to list his parents and brother as beneficiaries too. He said he wants them to receive 5% each. We do not currently help any of them financially. None of them are in any kind of financial need or hardship situation. His parents are in their early 60s and are semi-retired. His brother is in his late 20s, has a full-time job, and lives at home with mom and dad, rent and bill-free. He auto-pays student loans every month and will be done paying them off next year. He then plans to propose to his GF and get a place together. In some states, anything earned by either spouse is considered spousal property. For example, husband's pay from work is considered equally the husband's and his spouse's. So, anything paid directly from his paycheck is considered his spouse's, too, like, for example, benefits that are paid directly by his paycheck, including the life insurance benefit offered through his employer, because his paycheck and anything that is directly paid with it is considered equal property to both spouses. If the policy owner wants to name other parties as beneficiaries, the spouse's signature is required in order to do so. Additionally, in some states, life insurance benefits are not 100% tax-free. In PA, for example, beneficiaries other than your spouse are subject to 12 to 15% tax duty. It seems clear to me that listing beneficiaries other than spouses, children is highly unusual. I was always under the impression that life insurance is to benefit those who would otherwise suffer financially in the case of the insured's death. It also seems clear to me that my husband sees his parents and brother still as part of his immediate family. I don't see how any of them would be financially affected by his sudden, untimely death. I only see how I would be, since he and I are the only people depending on his salary. We also may have children at any time, and benefit options can only be changed once a year during open enrollment, or after a major life event, like having a baby. If, God forbid, I be pregnant, and my husband dies, the policy benefits would be distributed as written at the time of his death. We wouldn't have the chance to alter them after a baby was born. All this talk has me feeling awful. I hate thinking about if one of us dies early, and I don't see why listing any of my in-laws as beneficiaries even in low percentages is appropriate. But I also feel like a psycho, selfish freak for feeling this way as 90% beneficiary. But mostly, I just feel like crap because I have a husband who obviously didn't think this idea is inappropriate. Straight up, it's not normal. It just isn't done. It's so outside the norm, my signature is needed to agree to it. The other crazy part is he's not even aware it's so outside the norm that my signature is needed for consent. He just thinks he's being a thoughtful son, brother. I guess I want to know, how should I feel? Should I feel like crap because I'm so greedy and want 100%? Or should I feel like crap because I feel like I have a husband who doesn't see me and his unborn as 100% dependent? I feel like I can't shake this feeling that I'm married to someone who is still married to his family. I feel devastated and heartbroken because I'm in this position of having to explain to him that his life insurance policy is intended for his family, a family that we made when we got married. I literally feel sick over this. I feel like crap having to say that it's not right to list his brother and parents on his policy. Note, I would feel differently if any of these people were, in fact, in need or we were helping any of them financially. But they're not in need, and we're not helping any of them financially. They're all able-bodied. Also note, if someone is disabled, for example, and receives any kind of government assistance, and is a beneficiary of a life insurance payout, they become disqualified for that assistance. I just feel like there are so many reasons not to list other people on a life insurance policy. It seems really obvious to me why it's not done. And having a husband who wants to do this thing that isn't normal really makes me feel empty. I'd rather not be in this relationship. I feel lost, and I'd rather have nothing. After 13 years, it just feels really painful. I'm not even eating. In the past 48 hours, I've had 1 cup of noodles, that ramen cup thing. I'm hungry, but I don't want to eat. So, how should I feel? Am I a psychotic, selfish, greedy wench? And, what should I do? I had a career and feel comfortable going back. But, as I wrote, he cannot do whatever he wants with this life insurance policy. He needs my written consent to list other beneficiaries. Also, why I wrote having beneficiaries other than your spouse, children is very unusual. It's something that wouldn't normally be consented to, which is why consent is required. I agree, I should go back to work, but I also feel like I should be leaving him, starting the separation process. From your response, you seem to be of the mindset that all people should have their own careers. Keep in mind that nationwide, 50% of mothers, of minors, do not earn an income. That's right, 50% of them are stay-at-home mom and live in single-income households. My husband and I were setting up to be a part of that 50%. You're right, plans don't always work out, and having a fallback seems essential in my case. My husband and I aren't on the same page, and this is a big deal. It's shown that he thinks outside the norm in terms of family dynamic, and it affects me enough that I need a plan B. I honestly wish this issue had come up sooner. There's a bit more at play, and it has to do with children, and that we plan to have them in the near future. Immediate family is your spouse and children. If you're not married, your immediate family are parents or siblings. Once married, your parents and siblings are no longer considered immediate family members, hence why life insurance benefits are tax-free to immediate family members, spouse, children, but not tax-free to parents, siblings, and other people. You're right, it is possible to list other people as beneficiaries, but it's so unusual, not usually consented to, that it requires spousal consent. It does seem like I'm overreacting. When my husband said to me that he wanted to list his parents and brother as beneficiaries on his life insurance policy, he did seem uncomfortable. I think he's aware that it's not normal. Again, the only people that are affected by his income are him and I, since he's very close with his coworkers. I asked him if he believes any of them have their parents or siblings listed on their policies, to which he answered, no, it's their spouses and their kids. And so, began our discussion about us having kids. My husband wants a baby but has said he doesn't want one until he is more financially comfortable. We are both 33, and I have said I'd prefer not to have kids when medically considered advanced maternal age. You're medically considered advanced maternal age if your due date is when you are age 35 or older. That is, if you become pregnant at age 34 and 3 months or later. Even so, every week he talks about having kids, even though he knows he won't be done with grad school for another 1+ years. And when he brought up adding his parents and brother to his life insurance policy, and mentioned that his coworkers don't list their parents, sibling, only their spouse and children, he said, because I guess we're not having kids. When he said that, after every week saying how he wants a baby, I was taken aback completely. What on earth am I doing home if we're not having kids, for example? When my husband said he wants to add his parents and brother on his life insurance as beneficiaries, it was clear he doesn't see me, us, his immediate family, and still sees his parents and brother as his family. Again, I'm not sure how his parents or brother would be affected financially in the event of his death, but the added blow that he suddenly changed his tune about a family with me hit very hard. I was aware that I will be considered advanced maternal age when my husband finally feels financially comfortable enough to have kids. And I thought he was too, considering he talked about having a baby frequently, literally every week, including last week. But suddenly, he's saying I guess we're not having kids and therefore his family remains his parents and sibling. I don't want to leave. We do love each other. We don't have other problems, like infidelity or things like that. But I admit, I've always had this feeling that when I married him, I was marrying his whole family. And, like I said, there's nothing wrong with them. They're all fine physically and financially. I just feel more than taken aback by all of this. It's completely abnormal to list people on a life insurance policy who don't live with you, nor receive financial assistance from you, and wouldn't be in any financial need in the event of your end. So, my husband said to me that he wanted to add his parents and brother to his life insurance policy. I could tell he knew this isn't typically done by how he was talking. What's really striking about it, again, is that none of them will be financially affected in the event of his death. Only I would be, and any unborn child or children in the case of multiples. Life insurance policies list beneficiaries who would be financially affected by the insured person's death, or they list charities, a place in need of funds. For example, if you are earning income, but financially support your mother, father, siblings, then they would be financially affected by your passing, and they would be appropriate people to list on your life insurance as beneficiaries. For example, if your brother is disabled, and you help him, his family, by contributing some of your earning for his care, he would be an appropriate person to list as a beneficiary. It is generally accepted that your spouse and children are who's listed on your life insurance policy. And this is also why your spouse's signature is needed to consent to listing anyone other than your spouse. It's something that happens in unusual circumstances, like supporting a dependent relative. I imagine spouses would consent in situations like the above, but otherwise wouldn't, which is why consent is required. I truly feel lost after 13 years together. I wish this somehow came up sooner. I'm 33 now, and while I am comfortable getting my career back, I'm not comfortable starting a new life, family with someone else at this point. I just feel heartbroken. I've been crying for 2 days. I've spent most of it in bed, and I don't want to eat. I feel like I need to move on, without him. I don't want to think about losing someone I love so much. I married him. I don't want to be with someone who, if they die, doesn't see that no one else would be financially affected. Only me and our children. Only I would be tasked with determining end-of-life stuff for him. Only I would be responsible for funeral arrangements, and only I would be financially responsible for sustaining a home for our family. The fact that we aren't on the same page with this is both shocking, very painful. I don't want to lose him. I don't want to come across as this blood-sucking gold digger. I want nothing in our life to change. I only wish I could magically go back a couple days, and for him to feel the way I feel, that he and I are our family. I wouldn't, for example, ever even think to list my sister as even a partial beneficiary on my life insurance policy. Her financial well-being has no relation to my life or end. And my sister isn't doing as financially well as my brother-in-law. 1. We don't have any debts. I work 7 days a week to pay off his undergraduate loans, and we aren't taking out loans for grad school. As stated, we're able to pay out of pocket. But no, since those payments are 4 times per year and $10,000 each, we are not in a position to buy a house until after he finishes. 2. We decided for me to leave my job since we were moving. We also have a small dog and live in a major metropolitan area. It would cost about $50 to pay a dog walker, so between the move and the dent to my income to have a walker instead. Plus we agreed we wanted to see how we'd do live on one income like we would be when we have kids. We decided I'd try being a housewife. 3. I don't see why anyone should receive life insurance benefits who doesn't depend on my husband's income. I will be the one who makes end-of-life decisions. I would be the one to make funeral arrangements, and I would be the only one left to sustain our home, family. I would shoulder any debts in his name if he had any. No one else would be financially affected by my husband's passing. Only me and any unborn child, or children in the case of multiples. His life insurance policy through work is equal to 9 years' pay. It's not sustainable for a lifetime, but is certainly significant enough that even 10% is substantial. That 10% could cover a funeral, some chunk of college tuition, mortgage payments, childcare, because I will need to return to work, etc. Again, I'm not sure why anyone would list anyone other than a spouse, child as beneficiary, and in fact, it is so unusual, it requires my consent to do so. I quickly started realizing I'm the only one responsible for paying debts in either of our names, that his life insurance wouldn't sustain our life long. It's equal to 9 years' salary. If I'm pregnant, I'm going to need to go back to work regardless, but if I do have a child, or children in the case of multiple pregnancy, and God forbid I lose my husband, I will need childcare while I work, and then it dawned on me that end-of-life decisions would be solely on me. Considering every week, he talks about how he wants a baby, just not this next year, and that all this time, I thought we're doing this, paying for grad school so he can feel more financially secure for a family, me trialing staying home to see how we manage, and for what? Like, what am I doing home? And then I felt it, what am I doing here, in this bizarre marriage? I could barely speak. I'm not even sure I said anything or much of anything, whereas, normally, when we face issues, I have a lot to say, and I'm usually pretty vocal. It was like my breath was gone this time, though. I literally felt like we were talking about things that marriages end over, not about life insurance. I felt all kinds of hurt in one moment. I realized that I'm 33, nearly 34, and that it would be so difficult to start over. In fact, I don't even imagine it possible. It's not something that I need, I guess, but having been together for 13 years, I saw this life we'd built and planned just coming apart. I did not threaten, well, if you do this, then I want a divorce, but I think I muttered, I feel like we're talking about what people talk about when they decide to get divorced. Yes, I did say something like that. I know I did because, even though it was barely audible, again, unusual for me, I got up from the couch, completely saddened, and went to the bedroom. He came in later and said he doesn't want a divorce and tried to hug me. So, I know I said the word. So that was the entire conversation. We really haven't spoken since, and that was 2 days ago. I haven't been eating. I've spent most of that time in bed but haven't been able to sleep. I've showered, and done dishes, and made food for our beagle, he's 9, and taken him for walks, and today, I've been on the computer, here on this forum. So, I'm not non-functional, but I feel like my relationship is broken, and I'm devastated. Contrary to popular belief, I don't do nothing all day, even on normal days. We have a 9-year-old beagle, who I walk several times a day. He's also had some issues since having major surgery and he sleeps in bed with us, so I do laundry every day. I do dishes 3 times a day and clean our apartment. I make at least a couple meals a day and work out a little. I also volunteer at the animal shelter, do any errands, and handle our finances. Time still flies being a housewife. I've also spoken with an attorney licensed in several states, but she's also my best friend. No, I'm not at the point of seeking information from a divorce attorney. She's informed me that yes, my husband's paychecks are community property, and since the employer-sponsored life insurance benefit is paid directly with it, it requires my signature if he lists anyone at all as beneficiary, regardless of amount, percent. She explained that his pay is our property, requiring my consent. Considering the confirmation finding regarding needing my consent to add beneficiaries, is that it's not about the money. If, for example, my husband wants to leave a collector car worth 7 figures to his brother because it means something to him, I fully support this. That's right, even if the sale of that car would sustain our life that much longer, I'd fully support his decision. But this isn't a will, nor is it about the money. It's about the principle. The intention of life insurance isn't to act as a will, it is to help sustain those who would be financially affected by my husband's lost wages. If my brother-in-law or his parents were ill, for example, and, while living, we were financially supporting them, even a little, I would be in complete agreement with listing all of them as beneficiaries, since they are financially dependent on his income. But this is not the case. No one but he and I are dependent on his income. Life insurance is intended for those who would be financially affected by the insured's lost income. Yes, anyone can buy it, and yes, they can list whatever they want, but it is not typical of anyone with a spouse or children to not list them and only them. Again, I'd like to hear from anyone who is married or has kids with a life insurance policy who doesn't list only them as beneficiaries. There is 60+ posts in this thread, and not one does this apply to. Long story short, husband and I have spoken, and we're back on the same page. There was a miscommunication, or really not enough, I suppose. Also, to some, we want this life. We both agree to it and support each other in these decisions. I own 100% of everything in the case of his death. And as I've said, I am who would be left financially responsible, liable for everything. No one else would be financially responsible for his end-of-life decisions, arrangements. Only I would be financially responsible for our debts. Notice how I never say his. The same would be true in the reverse scenario. This is what we both see as part of marriage. My comment: you guys really need to focus on your communication skills. I really suggest you get IC for your dramatic and obsessive thoughts, and MC to help with your communication skills. You seem like a person who needs to plan everything, but your need to plan life seems a little extreme and dramatic to me. You act like you made the rules of life insurance and people's intentions around it. That's really annoying. You are really annoying. Broaden your life view.